Yeah, while you're rustling on shop, it's actually woke people up, which is good. Yeah, my name's Kirkwood. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for UiPath. We're one of the key RPA vendors out in the market, and generally considered to be one of the we are certainly the fastest growing. Quick introduction is this.
We're at the start of the fourth industrial revolution. The first was initiated in 1765 when James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny which could do the work of 8 people, and culminated in the rise of steam power, as evidenced by this 1838 Maudsley engine you see beside me. The second industrial revolution was characterised by mechanisation and epitomised by Henry Ford, who developed the first production line in 1913. And the third, by this, Intel's first 8-bit processor, which they produced in 1972 and heralded the dawn of the digital age in which we now live. Like our forebears, we at UiPath are humble engineers. By combining robotic process automation, cognitive and AI tools, we believe we will have a similar impact on the way that people work and on society as a whole. We're but a small part of this fourth industrial revolution, the journey into the future of work. Please join us.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that. We saw so many Uber videos. I had to put that in. 140% CAGR, so compound annual growth rate, 140%. Now that isn't actually anything to do with RPA, nothing to do with technology at all. Actually, that's the rise of steam power between 1800 and 1815. So this is not new stuff. In the same way that steam power and electricity, as we heard yesterday, actually facilitated other things to happen, we believe that RPA will do the same thing. In actual fact, Everest came out with a result last week, saying that 90% growth, 90% CAGR in RPA over the next 2 or 3 years. In fact, we've grown by 400% last year, and we've already done 75% of last year's entire revenue in the first 3 months of this year, so growing pretty fast. Why? RPA is but a tool. Think of it as a different way of doing the stuff that currently we've got people doing. And what we're seeing, and the reason that we're seeing this growth, not just for us, but also our competitors like Automation Anywhere, who are here, Blue Prism, and now with Work Fusion with their RPA Express product, what we're seeing is a maturity. It's a maturity in the technology. So RPA is moving away from the early adopters. It's moving away from those innovators that started this process 2, 3, 4 years ago. We're also seeing, for you people in the room, a maturity in services. So we're seeing maturity in the way that organizations have organized themselves through shared service operations, through captives, where they have outsourced or offshore activities. And we're also seeing a maturity in mentality. So what we're seeing is that 2 or 3 years ago, organizations said we want to automate the entire process end to end. That's what we want to do. But actually, humans are really good at doing stuff where it requires their knowledge. The knowledge worker, you people in the room. And so what organizations are now doing is saying, we'll automate bits. But the ROIs, the returns on investment that you can achieve by doing that, are hundreds of % in the first year. So don't think about automating a process end to end, think about the bits that you can automate and do that. Automation Anywhere came out with a great quote. They said, anything that can be automated will be over the next few years. And the reason for that is those 3 things. 5%. That's the market penetration for RPA in the world currently. On enterprises over $1 billion, 5%. That data came from Kathy Turnbull of Gartner. In the next year, next 12 to 15 months, that figure will move to 15 to 18%. So if anyone's read Crossing the Chasm, that's when mainstream organizations around the world will be using this technology. So your window of opportunity to be first mover advantage, gain first mover advantage in the market sector, in the industry that you operate in, is now. But you need to move fairly quickly because most of your competitors will start to pick it up within a year to 15 months. What matters? What really matters is how many processes you can automate, the breadth. Velocity, how fast can you automate those processes? What happens when things change? How agile can you be in terms of using the technology to achieve the aims? And security, which is just the table stakes. If you're not secure, then it won't work at all. We operate a tripartite relationship. So the relationship is between us, the RPA vendor, and regardless of which technology you use, between the technology vendor, between you, the customer, and also a partner. We always recommend that you use a partner. And the reason for that is that it accelerates your time to value. You can build your own center of excellence, you can train your own people, you can build that capability, but it takes quite a long time. So there are specialist organizations out in the market, smaller organizations like Virtual Operations, Symphony Ventures, Gen 4, I would have said Gen 4, except they were bought by Accenture last week, gives you an indication of the market. Those type of organizations have the most experience of implementing activities in operational excellence teams within the market. Then you've got the big guys, you've got the consulting organizations. The consulting organizations have finally they're still playing catch up, but they are rapidly building their capability because they see this market as a potential new ERP in terms of revenue generation. So we have operated bottom up. So for the last couple of years, people sitting within organizations, within the operational excellence, within shared service, within captive operations, have taken what they do, and frankly they're bored to death of doing it because they're transferring information through and between systems, as you heard yesterday. What they've done is they've downloaded a copy of the software, which you can do for free with us. They've done tutorials online, again that's free, and they've automated something. They've gone to you, to your boss, to their bosses, and waved it under their nose and said, look what I managed to achieve. Their bosses then got in touch with us, we've done a demo, POC, pilot, and now we're scaling. Actually, the consultancies own the relationship with the C-suites of your organizations. They own the relationship with the CFOs, the COOs of your organizations, and you see all of the press. I mean, last year, this event was all about Lean Six Sigma and process improvement. This year, it's all about technology. And the reason that the C-suites of your organizations are going to their strategic consulting partners and saying, what is this robot stuff? Why do I keep hearing about it? And what impacts it can have? And they are now building up their capability as fast as they possibly can to address that. So for instance, Deloitte in the UK are training up 5,000 of their people on UiPath this year. All of their consultants and all of their risk advisory people in the UK have been trained on the software. Let's go back to Lean Six Sigma. The reason we're here is because you should own RPA. You should own the capability within your organization to drive it throughout your enterprise. And the reason is that 2-3 years ago, RPA was owned and delivered by IT. And in most cases, that activity failed. Because IT potentially see RPA as an existential threat. Think about it. If you've got a CIO's task and their role is to build a bright, shiny new system with straight-through processing within their organization. Okay? How long have you been waiting for that, Nirvana? So RPA is, think of it as, well, IT think of it as a dirty fix, and I don't mind that description. It's a dirty fix. It fixes the old crappy technology that you're having to, and your people are having to deal with, because you don't need to change the technology, and you don't need to change the process. I repeat, you do not need to change the process, but there is a huge gap in the way that organizations will work if they don't fix the process. So, Generali, one of our big insurance clients, they've got 306 green and black belts. The Lean Six Sigma team own RPA, and they're now operating across 13 countries and I think about 30 projects where they are actually delivering RPA. Now you may say, well, okay, so fine, that requires a lot of cost, requires a lot of training, and all the rest of it. which is why, about 4 weeks ago, we launched the UiPath Academy. You can train yourselves and everyone else within your organisation for free. There is no cost in doing the training on UiPath. And there's broader subjects in there about how it fits into Lean and Six Sigma. So Lean and Sigma, that's the one thing I want to take away today. So Lean and Six Sigma, process improvement, operational excellence should own RPA. Okay, I was in America about a month ago, and I put this slide up. You know when you go to a conference and everyone starts taking photographs? That's why I'm standing down here, by the way, not up there. So, because everyone took photographs of that slide. Offshoring, I know, because it's my fault. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I started off my career 20 years ago with Equiterra. We were one of the first sourcing advisory organisations, helping organisations decide what they were going to do with their shared service or captive operations. And we said it was very simple. If you take someone sitting in Manchester versus someone sitting in Mumbai, the cost of someone in Mumbai is a third of the cost. What are you going to do? So a lot of that work moved to India and other low-cost locations. What's happened now is that RPA is taking on the very tasks and doing the very jobs that were originally outsourced and offshored in the first place. So NASCOM took place in February. Phil Furst, who's the chief executive and chief analyst of HFS, said they were like deer in headlights by two things. One was automation, which is going to take all the jobs away. You hear about RPA taking all the jobs. It won't take your jobs, it will take all those offshore jobs. And secondly was Trump, saying that he wanted to move all the work back to America. And if you saw the news last night, he's just reduced the corporate tax in the US down to 15%. So the EU are generally crapping themselves today. So offshoring is not a way that you want to do your work. DRG, Direct Line Group, one of our big insurance clients, they had previously offshored 600 processes to an Indian offshore service provider. They're moving all those back to Leeds, automating. No more people in Leeds. They're getting rid of all of that activity and bringing it back and automating it. So those are the sort of things that we're seeing. We've heard a lot about regulatory compliance. I had a chat with Dean yesterday and also with Kai David from Deutsche Bank. Regulatory compliance is really, really important because unless you can get your operations compliant, then you are going to run into trouble. And we've seen it time after time after time. So originally we went to the banks and said, we can increase the efficiency of your operation and decrease the cost. And they said, great, come back to us in 6 months because we've got other things to worry about. So I went to see the SEC and I went to see the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, and said, why are the banks not doing this? Because it's to their advantage. And they said, it's because we keep hammering them and they're only interested in compliance. Know your customer, GDPR is happening next year, BCBS 239, whatever the hell that is. Okay, so we then completely pivoted what we were talking to the banks about. So we then went to the banks and said, you know this RPA stuff we talked about? Actually, the way the robots work is you end up with a single golden record of every customer that you've got, because that's just how the robots work. And it doesn't matter how many systems there are in your banking operation. So if you're a customer of Barclays, not one zone obviously, but if you're a customer of Barclays, you may have a credit card and a check account and a savings account and a mortgage and a loan. So there could be 6 or 7 different versions of you in their systems. The regulator wants one to stop money laundering and fraud. The only way you can do that now is to do a big master data management, big IT project that drills into all those different databases at an API level. The alternative is to use robots, because that's the way they work. They drill in, they go in at the user interface level. As we heard yesterday, AI is only as good as the action it contains. RPA is exactly the same. So it goes in and it drags out, and you end up with one golden record. So we went to the banks and said, actually, we can help you meet your regulatory compliance. And we picked up 5 banks in the last 2 months just by switching our conversation. So where you are highly regulated, we had Ofwat, we were talking about yesterday. We had several other regulatory within the pharmaceutical market, and so on. If you're highly regulated, robots may be the answer to the issue. But moving on, let's look at where we're going. What is RPA doing? Adam Devine yesterday talked about how they produced RPA Express, which is a free RPA product, but they want to sell AI. That's their AI and cognitive engine that's really good. Actually, we're doing the reverse. So you buy RPA from us. It's not free. You buy RPA from us. But we're building the cognitive and AI elements into the platform at no additional cost. Why is that important? It's because it's the big guys, it's the Microsofts, the Googles, the IBMs, who are democratizing cognitive and AI elements. And they are open sourcing those. So IBM Watson, for instance, has 40 APIs that we can just plug into. Google TensorFlow is open source, we can just plug it in. So what that means for your organization is you start doing the RPA, and then you can bring on more elements as they become available to automate more. That's all it is. You're just going to automate more of your processes by using some of these tools. And the best description I came up with was, it was a golfing analogy. I'm not a golfist by any means, but let's say you're standing on the tee and you've got 400 yards to get down the fairway, over the bunkers and onto the green and into the hole. Think about RPA and cognitive and AI tools as different clubs. So RPA is to get you off the tee, down the fairway as far as you can. So it's a driver. Then think about the cognitive tools to get you over the bunkers and onto the green. And think about the AI tools as the putter to get the ball into the hole. What we're actually building, and I'm completely breaking my analogy now, and it's no longer sport, is what we're actually building over the next 2 or 3 years is essentially a little drone that will pick the ball up from the tee, fly it down the fairway and drop it straight in the hole. It's no longer sport, but it gets the job done. Cloud-based virtual delivery center. If you go to Automation Anywhere or Blue Prism or us, you buy an annual subscription license. That's the way that we operate. What we're now seeing is a virtual delivery center. So the first guy to come up with this was Capgemini. So actually, wind back a bit. Outsourcers have been using automation for the last 2 or 3 years, but haven't been telling you. So a good example, I'll have to be vague. A motor manufacturer, let's be as vague as that, used our software to automate a number of processes within our operational excellence area. We achieved a 75% reduction in headcount. That was good, it wasn't fantastic, but it was a good result. So I was out talking about it. I was talking about this to the market. We got a call from the outsourcing service provider saying, can you stop talking about that, please? We said, why? It's a great case study. They said, yes, yeah, maybe, but we did it, but we didn't tell the customer. So as you become more educated, that sort of behavior has got to stop. But this virtual delivery center that Capgemini set up had a 3,000-seat center, people. They've automated the whole lot. They're using a cognitive tool called Celaton, which is a UK company, very good, to deal with unstructured data and the semi-structured data, and UiPath to do the structured data. So what does that mean? It means that you can buy automation now on a transaction basis, or an outcome basis, or even on a gain share model. So you will start to see these different commercial models start to appear in the next year or 18 months. Cognitive automation is as I said, it's different tools. But essentially what you're doing is dealing with the, as I mentioned, the semi-structured, non-structured data versus structured data. So robots are really, really good at dealing with structured data. They're not good at dealing with invoices where they come in different formats. We mentioned Walmart yesterday being the only organisation in the world that has invoices from all of their suppliers in the same format. Most of you have something different. Dealing with that in RPA is difficult. So we're working with Abby now, A-B-B-Y-Y, who have cracked that. So day before yesterday, I did a demo in London I didn't do it, one of our tech guys did it, combining the unstructured and turning semi and unstructured data into structured data that our robots will then transact. That is what we've termed as the holy grail of RPA. Because if you can crack that, unstructured and semi-structured stuff, then you can automate many more of your processes. Going back to the list of what's important, these are some of the things that we're working on. I won't bore you to death with them. But essentially, we mentioned chatbots, for instance. So we have a bit of software called Studio. That's how you develop robots. It's very intuitive. It's built on .NET. Workflow Foundation is the same software that Visio and SharePoint's built on. So it's highly extensible, highly extensible. So we would expect and encourage you to build your own IP, your own intellectual property on top of our platform. And I'll come to that in a second. But when we're using chatbots, is that if you use Studio at the moment to actually develop the robots, when things change, think about Agile, when things change, when the underlying application changes, when there's a patch, and you need to reconfigure the robot, you have to go back into Studio and drag and drop the element. It's very intuitive, but you drag and drop that element into the robot, and then that promulgates out to the rest of the robots that you've got working. What we're working on now is chatbot, physical text chatbots at the moment. So if an invoice comes in that the robot doesn't recognise, and for some reason everyone calls their robots by name, so if the robot doesn't understand it, you type in, okay robot, if you see this type of invoice, stick it in bucket A, and the robot goes, okay, got that. Ultimately, that's going to be done by voice, but at the moment we're using chatbots for that. And predictive analytics. Within our orchestrator product, which is our server product, we've got Elasticsearch and combined reporting tool baked in. Those are open source products, and what they do is it allows you to do on-the-fly analysis of the data, because it's the data that's important. It's not the way you manipulate the data, it's actually what you do with the data. And that's what's really driving this KYC stuff within the banks. Predictive analytics, to identify those people who are going to be doing fraud, doing money laundering, and insurance organisations. It's identifying the people that you want to keep as customers and the people you want to get rid of because of their claims history. He said. Natural language processing, particularly with regards to human readable process maps. That is, I saw a yawn there, that's very, very boring. What it actually means is we're creating an app store. So as you develop, and as your developers develop let's say an SAP login or a Salesforce login or an AP module, that will go into a central repository. That's then monetized by the developer who did that, and it can be reused within your organizations, which is quite cool. This is my final slide. This has got, again, nothing to do with RPA, it's all to do with software. If you're a successful software business, you need to have two things, only two. You need to have an open platform, and you need to have a community of people who will use and love and make your product better. We have done both of those things. The open platform, as I said, is highly extensible, so you can build your own IP on top. That means that you can develop your own capabilities and adapt what you're doing within your organisation based on, say, what Dean and Will were talking about how you adapt your organisation in a world where the digital market is changing. You can use our platform to help you do that. Secondly, the community. We launched a free version of our software for not-for-profits, enterprises below $1 million, and for individuals 7 months ago, called the Community Edition. And we've got 10,000 developers now using our product. With the launch of UiPath Academy 2-3 weeks ago, and now being that all of our training now is available for free, I'm expecting that number to be 100,000 by the end of this year. That gives you an idea of the sort of scale of this. Importantly, we're working really closely with the community because we're interested in how they're using it and how we can make it better. So again, I would encourage you to get in touch with our people if you are starting to use automation, because you can actually influence the way that we run the product over the next few months and years. And by the way, the end game on this, as with all technology startups, is that we want to IPO on NASDAQ in 2020. Blue Prism floated almost exactly a year ago. Their share price has gone up by 6.8 times. I didn't buy any shares, which was stupid. Okay, so that's it. If you want to get in touch, my email address is guy@uipath.com, dead easy. As well as being a COO, I'm also, we talked about yesterday about Guy Kawasaki, namesake of mine. He was the chief evangelist for Apple. And this conversation is not me presenting to you, it has to be bi-directional. And that bi-directional nature is really, really important because it means that we can get better. Thank you very much indeed.